Hello, everybody, and welcome in to another episode of the Couch GMs podcast. It is Wednesday, June 28th, and the three best friends are here with you, George Kerth, Tyler Snyder, Cody Roadcap. Guys, how you doing? Almost to July, almost getting to important football activities.
Define important.
Training camp happens starting in July.
It's pretty important.
Yeah.
Important for the players, not important for the fantasy players. Except the injuries, as long as you're up on the injuries.
Yeah. Well, it just means we're getting one step closer, and this offseason has felt even longer than usual, in my opinion, because there's just been nothing happening.
Yeah, it's been slow. And I mean, this is the first time in a month the three of us are together. And boys, I'm a little disappointed. It seems like the energy is low across the board, despite first time in a month, the three of us back together.
I think it's because the one person that
apologize.
was actually here and he mentioned it was Tyler for both shows, which doesn't happen. So,
Ever.
It's rare.
guys, you cannot
rare.
reset
Hey.
your days since Tyler missed a podcast board over there. Like, it has to stay.
My
He'll miss when
attendance
the
has
important stuff
been
happens.
really good lately, so you can't be judging me.
Off-season tie.
Whoa. All right, let's not do that.
Well, I'm sure you're tired of hearing us talk, but at least talk about not football. But you can join our discussion about football and make sure you follow us on all the social medias at thecouchgms.com and that Discord chat. The link is in the description of the video or podcast. We're just going to have some fun here today with some segments. So why don't we start off with a segment we call Growers versus Showers.
Right, this little segment I came up with mainly because I liked the name. I thought it was funny. So basically, we're going to be discussing our growers for the season and our showers for the season. Our growers are the guys that maybe didn't perform up to par last year, but we are expecting a bigger season this year. We think they're going to grow in potential. We think they are going to be a lot better this year. Our showers are going to be our guys that maybe performed above expectations last year. They were all show. This year, we're not expecting the same. So basically, who do you think is going to be improving and who do you think is going to be falling off? But a much better name than the other podcasts. That's why you listen to us.
Hey, whatever it takes. Am I right?
Right.
Definitely loved the name for this one. We are no longer doing Manscaped ad reads. So this is not sponsored, but I think the code still works. So go back, listen to one of those episodes if you need 20% off. But George,
We still love Manscaped.
I don't know which team you're on, but are you ready to share your first grower?
I am ready to share my first grower. I am going to start with running backs. And it's going to be a guy that I feel like at least Cody and I hyped up a lot last year, never really showed. J.K. Dobbins. So,
Shocker. His girlfriend's a Ravens fan. I mean, he's like obsessed.
oh, right. Yeah. I mean, we saw him on some of those runs that he actually broke for big yardage, and he looked awkward running, coming back from that knee injury. He had to go on the injured reserve again and get a second scope. And now that he's more than a year and a half separated from the knee injury, did stay healthy for the second half of the season. The fact that they're probably going to try to protect Lamar a little bit more now that he's the richest quarterback per year in NFL history. The running backs might actually get some more carries. So I think there's a lot going for J.K. Dobbins this year.
Hey, man. Like the term of this segment, it's not about what it looks like, it's how you finish. So J.K. Dobbins could have a bounce back season, like you mentioning. I guess I'll go next because I'm talking, and I also have a running back for my first one. But I need to get a ruling. If you guys don't know, I could show you our thread where we're talking about this episode. I asked like 400 questions about this segment because my brain just can I count someone that has been good but then had a down year because of injury to bounce back in a strong way for a grower?
Dude, if they're going to be growing this season, I'll take it.
Okay, so maybe it's a cop-out answer, maybe it's not, but the 36th ranked running back last year was Jonathan Taylor, and that's pretty low for a guy that you probably took second overall in your draft, and there's probably some hesitancies. They have a new quarterback. We're expecting Anthony Richardson to be there, new head coach. all this stuff. What do you do with Jonathan Taylor? Well, I'm here to tell you, I was not on the hot takes episode, but I think he's right back up there in, top 5 fantasy running backs again this year. So I'm all back in on the Jonathan Taylor train as long as he can stay healthy, which I think he can. And I think he will have a bounce back. And he was a little cold last year, okay? We all know what happens when you get cold. It's going to be hot in Indianapolis, and he's going to be a grower.
If that was going to be your hot take from last week's hot takes episode, you are not close to hot enough.
No, I know. I heard the episode. Alexander
judging the
Mattinson,
episode?
2,000 yards.
Look, we were going to the hottest takes, so make sure you go back and listen to it if you haven't. This is totally.
Yeah, I don't know if that was a good promo or a bad promo.
episode.
It was definitely worth checking out, so definitely go do it.
Yeah, way to just like crap on our episode. Look, I'm not a big fan of when I'm listening to the radio or I'm listening to other people talk about hot takes and like, okay, here's my hot take for this year. Mike Evans is going to catch 2 touchdowns in a game. Like, don't care. What a stupid hot take. Like, give me some actual hot takes. Give me something that is out there but still has a chance of hitting. I want some excitement. So we did that. Will you judge
I don't know
it?
if mine can actually hit, but
it could. Why couldn't it? If he's a leading running back for that team, I mean, there's always that chance. I don't see it, which is why it's called a hot take, but there's always that chance. Anyway, I'm rambling. So since you guys are going running backs, I'm going to stay on the same train. I'm going to go with a running back as well. My running back was running back 42 last year. He had quite a bit of hype and didn't really live up to it on the stat sheet. He's right down there with guys like Brian Robinson, Rashad White, Samaje Perine, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, some great names. Going with Jets running back Breece Hall. I think that the Jets are really starting to move forward. Look at how much Aaron Rodgers leaned on his running game in Green Bay. I think now that he's with the Jets, he's going to be doing the same, and I think Breece Hall is going to take a step forward this year. I think he's going to move up there in the ranks big time over his 42nd ranked from this year. So Breece Hall, my grower.
Be interested to see if he starts on PUP or not. That's my bit. Or because they've also been linked to Dalvin Cook because they're just bringing in everybody because that's what they're trying to do this year. So I think if they do, that leans to Breece starting on PUP. But if he's ready in week 1, I 100% agree with your assessment, which doesn't happen often, as longtime listeners know.
It's true.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
I mean, one of the most explosive rookie running backs in a while. It was unfortunate what happened. There's definitely a good chance. Were you going to tell me to go next here, Cody?
I was going to ask you, do we want to take a break from growers and do a round of showers and then come back, or you want to give me another grower?
Oh, no, we can go to showers. We can mix it up a little bit.
Are you going to go?
Because that means I'm going first.
Well, you went first last time.
All right. Well, when Cody was sending us 1.5 million questions about this segment, I was trying to give him an example of somebody who could qualify as a shower, and he's actually going to be my first one. So that'll be Christian Kirk, wide receiver for the Jaguars. So I still think he's going to have a decent year, but he's only had now 1 season in his career where he's been as effective of a wide receiver as he was last year. He was really coming on the scene out of nowhere, essentially, besides the fact that they gave him $1.5 million in a contract. But he's also got Calvin Ridley to deal with there now. We kind of forgot about Calvin Ridley because he had the year suspension from the gambling issue. He just got traded there midseason last year, but couldn't play, obviously. Jags team on the rise. They're growers. Christian Kirk, I think he's going to take a step back. He's going to be a shower.
Christian Kirk. I think your point about Calvin Ridley being there makes a ton of sense. Now, they did pay Christian Kirk a lot, so he could still start the season as a guy, gets a lot of target. He could start out strong. We're getting way too early, but he could be like an early trade deadline candidate, like try to move him while his value's hot. Because I think Calvin Ridley, as he adjusts back into life of the NFL, he's not come back from injury, I think could be a real dominant factor. So I do really like that one. I'm going to stick with the running back positions for my shower as well. And this one really hurts me because I love this player. But I think he superseded, outshowed fantasy potential last year, and that is running back Jamal Williams. He finished as RB7. He now has switched teams to the New Orleans Saints. Again, we don't know what's going to happen with Alvin Kamara. There's still some question marks around him, so Jamal could start the season as the starter. But Jamal Williams, despite his breakout year, that was definitely on the back of 17 touchdowns, which definitely should regress. Not saying he won't, he could still have 8 touchdowns, but that's literally less. That's more than half gone. So he was also only running back inside the top 12 last year that had less than 15 catches. So he's not a real big pass threat. He had the lowest yards per average at 4.1 out of all those guys in the top 12 last year. So Jamal Williams, I love you. You're one of my favorite players. Stay being yourself. Stay playing, in Frozen and in SpongeBob. But I'm sorry, you're a shower. We're a shower.
Oof.
I love you.
Oof. So I will say, just a little heads up is like, be weary of guys like Jamal Williams. Now, if Kamara goes down, it's going to look like Jamal Williams, lead running back. Like we gotta buy into Jamal Williams. Let's sell out. Keep in mind, like we discussed a few episodes ago, which I'm sure you already heard because you listened to every single episode. Thank you for that. There is a lot of big name free agent running backs out there. You have Dalvin Cook, you have Ezekiel Elliott, you have Leonard Fournette, you have Kareem Hunt. There's big names out there. If a team loses a top guy like Kamara, or if whatever happens with Mixon, he goes like. These teams could bring in one of these top free agents. I mean, Cody even said it. Even the Jets, who already have running backs, are looking at bringing in Dalvin Cook. Like, these are big name guys sitting there. And if a team wants to win now, they might bring in one of these veterans and try to make that extra push. So you could lose some value. This is a league of running back by committee. It's just the way the league is going now. It sucks for fantasy players, but it's just the way it is. So be wary of that.
I want to hit you guys with some numbers before we move on from him too. So I thought it was all the touchdowns. He didn't get as many carries as we thought. He still actually was in the top, I believe, 8 in carries last year. Yes. So
okay. Now take his carries and subtract carries inside the 20s.
I mean, that's true too. And that probably could be part of why this stat I'm about to bring up is. So I was looking then at yards per attempt for some of the highest used running backs last year. And he was the lowest out of the top 12 besides one person, and that's Ezekiel Elliott, who's a free agent. And the next closest to him right above him was Dalvin Cook, who's a free agent. So, productivity with those carries, part of it might be because he got so many carries at the 1, which, obviously not going to turn into yards per attempt, but maybe not as effective as of a running back as it was perceived, partly because touchdowns. But yes, exactly.
All right, so
man,
I will get into.
So I agree.
I will get into my shower, and this has been a podcast favorite, a guy that we have been hyping up all last season. We have given all the kudos in the world, but I think he's about to fall off a cliff, and that is quarterback Geno Smith. He was quarterback 5 last year, and look, quarterback 5, super impressive. Geno had a great year. I don't want to take anything away from him, but we also need to look at the quarterback position last year. Last year was a year that all of us were sitting there like, dude, why would I draft a quarterback? Like, you can get top tier elite quarterbacks in the late rounds. Like, a Russell Wilson is falling to round 15. Like, dude, I can get this top talent. Quarterbacks sucked last year. Outside of Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, and Joe Burrow, every other quarterback disappointed or was super inconsistent. There really wasn't any other quarterback that was consistently putting up points on a week-to-week basis. So Geno Smith being up there at 5, awesome for him, but it also says a lot about the rest of the quarterbacks out there as well. Now, this year, I think that Geno was playing out of his mind. He got that contract. He can settle in a little bit. I still don't think the Seahawks are that great of a team. I still think that they are going to take a step back. The Seattle Seahawks were a shower last year. So I feel like the whole team is going to step back. Geno's going to be a part of it too. The guy is also super prone to interceptions. Once he starts making those interceptions, it can get in his head. We could see exactly what happened to him earlier in his career. I think Geno's going to take a step back. He's my shower.
The Seahawks were a major beneficiary last year of the 2 teams that should have also been competitive in their division not being good, and the Rams getting decimated in injuries, and the Cardinals just not showing up.
They also had a killer draft.
Yeah. lucky with the rookie talent, but yeah, I'm with you, Tyler. I don't see Geno Smith replicating that, but there's a chance it could be like a solid backup quarterback, not QB5.
Yeah,
So
I don't
that
think he's
was,
going to be QB5, but we also need to think like they have Kenneth Walker on their team. They took Charbonnet. Like they have these good running backs now. I feel like they're going to lean on the running back game a little heavier this year. Last year, it seemed like every running back that stepped on the field got hurt, and now, of course, that there's always that possibility this year as well. So I feel like they're
For the
going to
last
lean a
5
bit
years.
heavier. Yeah, basically, I think they're going to lean heavier on the running game this year, and that's just going to take away attempts for Geno because Geno threw a lot last year.
so my follow-up question for this is a little debate here. Geno Smith. So we have him at 5, and I don't think any of us expect him to be at 5. But do we think he could still be a QB1, so a top 12 guy, or do you think we're talking like, middle 16 to 20 range for Geno Smith?
I don't know if 16 to 20 is. I would say 12 to 16.
Yeah, I think if you go down the list of quarterbacks, I can see 12 guys that I could put above him. So I would say he's that fringe quarterback 1.
Mhm.
I'd say he's right around that 12. I wouldn't put him in the top 10, but I wouldn't put him as like a definite backup. I'd put him right at that fringe.
Yeah, just a couple
Cop-out
names that
answer.
are I feel like are definitely going to do better than him this year. Justin Fields, mostly because of rushing ability. Cousins has a chance. I'm not really buying it on him. Jared Goff, I think, is going to do better than him this year. Justin Herbert could be a rebound. Aaron Rodgers could be a rebound.
So just
That already knocks him to 10, and that's not even going through nitpicking.
So just for fun, I looked it up on Fantasy Pros where their current rankings are, and Geno Smith is 14th. So I think 12 to 16, 14's right in the middle. But Kirk Cousins is 13th, Aaron Rodgers is 15th, Jared Goff is 16th. So literally 3 of the 4 names you just mentioned, according to them, are right there with Geno Smith as well. And I tend to agree.
I
He
didn't
got
even look
impressive
far enough
hits.
down to see Lamar Jackson and Tua down there too. They're also pretty much givens. They're probably definitely way above him in that ranking. So
All right, George, back to growers.
back to growers. My second grower is the most hated position in fantasy football, the tight end position. Somebody who I think I was kind of reminded the other day as I just like kind of let the YouTube wormhole go, and I ended up on some like top plays from the 2022 season, and I saw
Cole
TJ
Kmet.
Hawkinson in a Lions jersey come up like 5 times, it felt like, in the top 100. And then obviously he went to Minnesota at the trade deadline, never quite got the connection down. And it's number one, hard to learn a new offense in the middle of the season. Number two, I don't know if they
You
entirely
about to
had their
list
offense
TJ
built around a
Hawkinson as a
tight end.
grower?
The
Bro was
number 2
number
tight
2
end.
last year.
The number
Where's
2
he going
tight
to grow
end.
to? Number 1?
But if you look at it, his second half of the season was very disappointing. Maybe he had a couple of games near the fantasy championship that were decent, but once he got traded, it was not great. So second half, TJ Hawkinson is a grower.
Man, I feel like that's more of a cop-out answer than Cody's. Jonathan Taylor. I think Derrick Henry's going to be a grower this year. He finished 4. I'm predicting 3. Like, what? What is happening?
You're also talking about running backs as opposed to tight ends when all the tight ends stink. Besides Kelsey. Maybe Kittle. Maybe Andrews. That's it.
It's cute.
I
didn't mention Hawkinson. There's your answer.
Dude, I'm just doing quick math here on you.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure if you would like split the season, what is it, after week 9? The points numbers would be kind of similar.
Interesting.
I mean, 86 receptions, 129 targets. He had his most targets came with the Vikings. The second one is tied with the Vikings. He had 112 target game with the Lions. I'm throwing a flag. Repick. Also,
someone
this
else
is
go.
that was
Yeah,
the
we'll
point of
have
the repick, so I could think of somebody else.
Oh,
All
did
right,
he
so
take your pick of TJ Hawkinson?
no,
Mr. Oh, we have to repick it, but I picked him too.
no,
Is
I
that what
wasn't.
happened?
No, I was not going to pick him. I was going to take a cop out answer again and to take
Oh,
Cooper Cup, but then I got called out for it, so now I was pivoting last
Yeah,
second.
you can't do two of them now. Come on now.
Yeah, that's fine. So hang on, I gotta get back to my stats page
Tell you
that I
what,
was looking.
why don't you take a pause and you think about it? George, you take a pause and think about it, and I'm going to take a poop break. So let's pause for a sec. Sorry.
All right, so we're back after Tyler left us for his quick break. But we're talking growers and showers, and am I doing a grower or a shower? I should have asked this before.
We're
we
on
started.
growers, man.
you are doing a grower.
Right, growers, and I have my guy. I have my shower too, but my grower is a wide receiver. Surprise, surprise, had to get one in there. And it's a guy going into his second year. He was one of my favorite prospects coming out of the draft.
He took my guy.
It's George Pickens. Wide receiver 31 last year, top 12 potential coming in this year. I think you could look at Kenny Pickett right in that same vein as where Geno Smith might end up. So taking that back to who George's shower was from the last round. But yeah, I think second year in the offense, the dude's a playmaker. George Pickens, he's ready to break out. He's ready to grow.
Nice. I like the pick. Solid choice. I wasn't my guy. You didn't steal my guy, but you apparently stole George's. So if two people were willing to say it, then it has to be a good pick, right? I'll
blood
go
was
right on to
flowing.
mine then, since George copped out for his answer and picked the second best scoring tight end last year as his grower. I can't. Anyway, so my guy is not ranked second. He's ranked 54th for wide receivers. That's how you pick a grower, George. Just saying. I
It's
am
tight end.
taking
He's trying.
a Colts wide receiver, which I didn't think I'd ever say. And the Colts now have a rookie quarterback taking over, Anthony Richardson. And like I always say, rookie quarterbacks like to throw to two things. One is the tight end, but I'm not taking Jelani Woods. Don't care. I'm not taking Mo Alley
The
Cox.
other
Don't
one's
care.
defense.
A defense. No. The other thing a rookie quarterback likes to throw to is the slot wide receiver. Now, the Colts have a new slot wide receiver. Former Bills receiver Isaiah McKenzie is taking over. He's going to be their slot wide receiver this year, and I think that he is about to have a big increase. I think he's going to slot into the system really nice. I think that his speed and athleticism is going to mix really well with Anthony Richardson. I was actually close to picking Alec Pierce as my grower, but I shifted more towards Isaiah McKenzie instead. I just think that the slot wide receiver and a rookie quarterback mesh really well together. These two are going to get along just fine. Isaiah McKenzie is my grower.
It's a good one. That's one I wouldn't have thought of. So nicely done.
George, if
Thank
you
you. don't
have another one, we'll let it slide and you can go on to.
I have one more that you'll probably shit on too. Maybe not. I don't know. So you guys.
It sucks.
Oh my gosh.
Stupid.
Okay.
Did you miss us?
Yes, I totally did. All right. So I'm going to go with a second-year wide receiver that's not George Pickens. Somebody who was growing up in the system with their now starting quarterback in Washington, Jahan Dotson.
Jahan Dotson. I thought you were about to pick Tyreek Hill. Look, I was ready for it.
Second-year wide receiver Tyreek Hill. Where's he? I want to see where he is for Dynasty.
No, I heard wide receiver. I just assumed you were going to pick the second highest scoring wide receiver. That's all.
No, you're Jahan Dotson. He had a lot of flashes last year. He actually still, in limited time with injuries, averaged about 9.4 half PPR points a game. But I think there's a great chance that can go up as he works into the offense more, hopefully stays healthy this year. Yeah.
All right. Why don't you just roll right off with your shower now that you had to go twice?
All right. My other shower. Now, we'll see how you guys react to this one. He already started to struggle last year, which is why I'm seeing maybe you guys will be a little mad about this one, but I think it's going to get even worse. And I wanted to kind of use this as a PSA as well, as maybe he's a little more hype than we thought he was. Deebo Samuel. So Deebo Samuel has only had 1 year where he's really been blow us away impressive. He's obviously had his rookie year where he showed so many flashes. 2020 was an injury year. 2021, he was absolutely amazing. And then last year, he kind of regressed back to what could be his norm. But I think it could get even worse because he was out a lot with injury after they traded for Christian McCaffrey. But the Swiss Army knife there could take away some of his running back touches as well as maybe some of his short yardage catches. They still have Brandon Ayuk and George Kittle there as well. And the quarterback situation is a little bit sketchy. We really don't know who's going to end up playing there. We just know they're going to end up in the Super Bowl with Sam Darnold and winning. So Deebo Samuel really concerns me. He is my shower.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm counting. So I get it. I do. I get this because I had the same debate with some other players. I get it. I don't know if it qualifies in the term of this argument. He was the 38th best wide receiver last year, 28th in points per game. That's what I was counting. But I get your point. Like, he has the name value where people still think about his season 2 years ago. And I'll piggyback off of that. This isn't my actual pick, but I thought about including DeAndre Hopkins. I didn't because he's not on a team, but he's a guy I think no matter where he goes will get drafted on name value alone, but is probably past his prime and would be considered a shower. So I get it 100% with what you're saying. And I do think it's important to point out, like, Brandon Ayuk scored more points with him. George Kittle came out and said Brandon Ayuk tore up our defense. Like, that was the guy they drafted in the first round. He was in the doghouse for a little bit, but it seems like he is going back to taking over the number one spot in, and there's still Christian McCaffrey there, still George Kittle as well. So it's a lot to go around. I think you mentioned that last week when you were talking about the hot take that Sam Darnold is going to lead the 49ers to the playoffs. I now went on a rant, or following up with George, that I forgot my player. I knew I should have written it down.
Cody, so Tyler, I can go so you have time to think about it. Yeah. That's all right. So you just mentioned DeAndre Hopkins, and you mentioned how he is past his prime, but he's still going to get drafted on name value alone. Look, Hopkins is 31. He's going to be playing with a new quarterback, and he is probably past his prime and still will get drafted on name value alone. However, what if I told you there's another wide receiver who's only 1 year younger, also has a new quarterback, and will also be drafted high on name value alone? It is Mike Evans.
It's my guy. Oh, my guy was Chris Godwin. So we're on the same page.
We're on the same page here. I'm going Mike Evans. I feel like Mike Evans has been kind of struggling with the lingering injuries recently, which kind of makes me nervous. Chris Godwin's been struggling with the bigger injuries. Either way, they're both struggling with injuries. They're on a team that is definitely on the downswing, definitely on a rebuild. They got Baker Mayfield stepping in, which, look, I honestly hope Baker Mayfield shows up and is a top 5 quarterback. Not going to happen, but I hope. It would make me so happy. I'm actually rooting for Baker. But I don't see it. I see him struggling. I see the Bucs in general struggling, and I do think Mike Evans is past his prime and is going to start going down. He was still the 16th best wide receiver last year. He has been a consistent top wide receiver every single year. And every year someone tries to say, well, this isn't going to be the year for Evans. He's finally done. And every year he shows us, he's still got it. But I think this year, I'm going to be the one that says it. I'm going to be the one that says Mike Evans is past his prime. He's on the downswing. I think he is a shower now. Last year was a shower.
Yeah, and as soon as you started talking, I was like, oh, wait, I think you're talking about my guy. And like I said, it was going to be Chris Godwin. For a lot of it has to do with Baker Mayfield. And he's a guy that we can root for, but we have to see it to believe it. The good news is, if you are still a Baker stan, he's in a pretty bad division. Like, you think the Saints might be the best team just because they're the most veterans, and the Panthers are the oddball with the first overall pick. And then whatever's left in Tampa, and the fourth team is escaping me because that's just how bad the Falcons. Exactly my point. So
poor Falcons.
Hey, they have Bijan number 1 pick in dynasty drafts. Congrats. Since you did take Mike Evans. I will pivot here. I will say Chris Godwin was a guy there. But I will go down a little bit to not quite top 25. He's sitting at number 26. I don't want to pick him either because I was going to pick Zay Jones, but George picked Christian Kirk. And I'm just copying everybody. So
You suck at this.
I know I'm doing so bad. So here,
this is what happens when we're like, oh, let's just surprise each other here.
Yes, we should have.
Instead of like, oh, let's write this out on our rundown. No, this is this is a train wreck, and I love it.
All right, just for one, I'll go back to the tight end position. I'll take tight end 5, and he should be there. I don't know why he is. Taysom Hill. The dude has shown out for 3 years now. It is finally time for hopefully the new quarterback. They're not going to take Derek Carr off. I thought he was going to end up with Sean Payton. He didn't. But yeah, Taysom Hill, he was tight end 5 with 9 catches. Yep. Tight end 5 with 9 catches.
He was basically playing Wildcat quarterback. So this year he's going to play running back. So last year he was tight end quarterback eligibility on ESPN. This year it's going to be running back quarterback eligibility because they're going to lose Alvin Kamara probably. Jamal Williams is going to be their only guy left, and they're going to find a way to use Taysom Hill because they always do, and it makes us all angry. So he's going to be a running back this year. That's my prediction.
I hate
this.
Taysom
Is not
Hill.
This is not the hot takes episode. You should do that last week.
Well, is it even that much of a hot take knowing how they just throw him in there wherever the heck they want to, and he happens to produce enough to ruin everyone else on that team's fantasy value?
As a guy who owned Alvin Kamara, as a guy who had Chris Olave, as a guy who had to pick up Jawan Johnson because the tight ends are garbage, as a guy who was a Rashid Shaheed truther and still will be to the end of time, and this man's going to break out, I can't stand Taysom Hill because it never fails. They get down close to the red zone and they're like, all right, let's bring in Taysom. Let's let him get the touchdown. And you know it's coming. You know as soon as he hits the field, yeah, they're going to give it to Taysom Hill. Like all of us are sitting at home going, Taysom Hill's going to get it. They only ever give it to him. And yet somehow he's always wide open, uncovered, like, oh, I didn't see that coming. Touchdown. Same with Jamal Williams. I love Jamal Williams as a person. Hated him for fantasy last year. Absolutely hated him. As a guy who owned DeAndre Swift in way too many leagues, I'm like, wow, Swift is making these epic jukes and cuts and hurdling people, and he is doing great. Oh, they got to the 10. He's out of the game. Jamal Williams, touchdown. And again, when Jamal Williams comes into the game, they're like, he's trying to break the rushing touchdown record. Obviously, they're going to give it to him. Still gets it. Like, I can't stand these guys.
Thank you for backing up my point, by the way.
They'll get used to it.
I'm not.
Whatever
I'm
I did, you're welcome.
I can. Backed up that Taysom Hill is annoying. Anyway, I think that wraps up growers and showers. Is that everybody?
Yeah.
All right. One more segment before we get out of here. We're going to keep the talk on fantasy football, and while we talk about some fantasy football rules that can elevate your league. All right, so I know Cody and I saw some TikToks this past week or 2 weeks that kind of was the inspiration for this segment. So I don't know if you want to go first or not, Cody, but we're going to talk about some interesting rules that aren't in, these standard or, platform run leagues that you can do to either make your league, more interesting or, add some more things in the offseason, whatever it might be. Cody, do you want to go first?
Sure. And I think when we go through this, we have a couple. This covers the whole gamut of fantasy, whether it's scoring, whether it's just league camaraderie, all that. Mm-hmm. But since I get to go first, there's one place I have to start. And if you've been with us for all 170 episodes, you know exactly
where this is going. Yeah.
Get rid of kickers in fantasy football and make it a second flex position. It makes your league more competitive. It makes waiver wire even more important because depth is so much more important because you're starting an extra skill position, not a super flex, just a normal wide receiver, tight end, running back, flex position. It makes leagues more competitive. Kickers are everything in fantasy is up in the air. It is a complete. Never know. The top players score 3 points some weeks. It just happens. But there is literally no rhyme or reason for kickers. They get 4 field goals attempt 1 week, 0 the next week. That's why 1 year the Kansas City Chiefs win the Super Bowl. The number 1 scoring kicker is Harrison Butker. The following year, it's Young Hoopoo on a top 5 draft pick team in the Atlanta Falcons. Like, kickers don't make sense in fantasy. Get them out. Swap that kicker spot for a second flex spot. You will have a lot more fun playing fantasy football.
Kickers' lives matter. Tyler, do you want me to go next? Do you have one here for us, or
I love kickers. I think they're so funny. I think I love kickers so much because Cody hates them so much, and as
Probably.
a terrible friend, I just root for the chaos. No, mine's pretty simple here, and it's the same thing I'd like the NFL to implement. It's here we go. Here's a rule that the NFL and fantasy should both implement: get rid of ties. Any ties, none. I don't want them. I don't think fantasy football should have them. I don't think the NFL should have them. I don't think there should be ties. There should be a winner. Now, if you're in an ESPN league, switch to a different league because ESPN's a terrible platform, in my opinion. But go to a league that maybe has the decimal points so that it is spread out a little bit more. There's less chance of ties instead of the rounded up numbers. Or maybe just come up with some fun tiebreakers with your league mates. Talk to your commissioner, talk to your league. You can come up with something really crazy, something really fun, or maybe you can come up with a really standard set way to decide it, like go off of bench points, go off of whatever you have to do. But don't have ties in fantasy football. It ruins it.
So, just really quick, what's your favorite way off the top of your head to break a tie?
I think the easiest
In
way
the
is
regular
bench points.
season, at least. Okay.
I think bench points is
Yeah.
the easiest way. I mean, we've all been there in the situations where they're like, oh my God, I can't believe I benched this dude who got 40 points. Like, this hurts. But if you tied with somebody, that 40 points could come into play. And suddenly it's a lot more valuable. Now, it sucks if you're a guy that has like 7 people on bye and your whole bench is on bye and you get 0 points. Yes, but look, it's part of the game. You take that risk every single week of it potentially being the week you need your bench points, potentially being the week you don't. You can go an entire season without anybody tying. It's not a thing that happens very often, but especially happens more in leagues like ESPN where points are rounded up. But yeah, bench points is my best way to break ties.
I've got an interesting one. So I like bench points the most for playoffs because there's obviously then no buys. So it's kind of like you're looking at who was the strongest overall team in that week. So I like that idea. For the regular season, I like either going with who is the highest scoring player in the entire matchup, like of the starters. So like, if you have one person who went off for 45 points and the other team's highest score had 30, you win because you had that one guy who is basically a hero for you. Or if you want to look at who a team was most consistent, maybe you take the loser is the team that had the lowest scoring starter. So if you had a guy pull out a 0.5 on you and the other team's lowest score was a 2, the team with that had the lowest scoring player as a 2 wins. I think those are both interesting.
Yeah, they're interesting. One other one I'd throw in there too. And this one you have to have an active commissioner, which we've talked in length about why that's important too. But let it be a tie until the following week. And then obviously they're not playing each other, but there's still a game between them on who scores the most points.
Interesting.
Yeah, that works too.
I don't hate that either. It would again stink if they had a lot of buys the next week. They could lose 2 matchups in that 1 week, but I don't hate the idea of that either.
At least it prevents the tie where the one person had all the buys that week. Like, you've still set your best roster for each week.
That's true. Okay. So some good ideas there. I'll start off with an interesting one about trades because we know that trades and vetoes are one of the most annoying things. So we're always, team, you don't veto unless it's collusion, and that's definitely still true. But I saw one person throw out if you would have a counter offer period. So a trade gets accepted, and the rest of the league has 1 day to take the trade package from one of the teams and offer up their own trade package to see if they would rather have who the counter offer would give instead of the original trade.
Absolutely hate it. Only because I can't tell you the amount of times in our history that I have gotten a trade with somebody and Cody immediately jumped in the group chat like, I offered so much better players for that trade. And they looked at mine first and just hit accept, so Cody didn't get the chance. Like, I'm notorious for sending out crappy trades, but every now and then it hits. So I hate it because Cody would beat me out.
No, I actually don't like it either. I feel like I would because I like to trade, but I think it takes away, like, there's no incentive for me to ever then try to make a trade. I'll just wait.
because you could just get.
I'll just sit there and
Yeah, I
wait and see
gotcha.
what happens. Like, and then there's also like situations too where I've noticed this happen where sometimes you have to make a trade where it's might not be the best offer, but like you're in a must win now. Like you're off to an 0-3 start, and your top two running backs are now both hurt, so you have to take a little bit of a loss just to try to get competitive again. Like so, and you've talked to somebody about that, and now, okay, I'm using you for an example, George, because you took a swing on Jonathan Taylor coming back from injury last year in our league of record, so you traded for him
Yes.
when he was injured. I mean, other people could have not even been thinking about trading for Jonathan Taylor, and you did. Or maybe there's a guy you're trying to acquire that might be 2 weeks out from returning from IR. We talked about that, like getting ahead of the curve. And now the whole league is onto it, and they're like, actually, that's a smart move. I think it makes it fantasy football a little bit more lazy in that way. It sounds fun on the surface, but I think if people aren't actively trading, it just gives them a way to make trades. Or someone be like, oh, I don't want his trade to be better. I'm going to make this. I already lost 5 games. We're at the trade deadline. Here, I'll offer you this. I didn't want to swear. This, bad trade just because it gives you more players to screw over, a guy in first place or something like that.
That's very true. I mean, I didn't really love it to start with. I thought it was just something interesting we should discuss. I hate it even more now that you guys have convinced me.
All right, I got one for you guys. I heard this one on TikTok, and I don't even know if I like this one, but they made some compelling arguments, and it was a sliding scale for points per reception to try to balance things out. So wide receivers were half point, running backs were a full point, tight ends were a point and a half. So you can adjust it, but like you see the sliding scale situation, so it helps bring up. Obviously, Travis Kelce still just becomes an even better tight end. I get that. So, but like it helps bring up the value of the rest of the league in tight ends and running backs, helps balance out the scoring. I think that could be fun. I don't know if I'd want to do it in my main league, but I would definitely be down to try it.
Yeah, I mean, if
Are
you want
running
to tip the
backs really that
scales, you could.
much?
I was gonna say you
Sorry,
could
go
even
ahead,
get
Tyler.
rid
You
of like the points per reception thing. You could also do it for just anything. So like right now, typical scoring is you get a point for every 10 yards receiving. You could change it that tight ends get a point for every 8 yards receiving, or a point for every 7 yards receiving. Like tight ends can get, instead of 6 points for a touchdown, they get 7. Like you can really adjust any of the tight end scoring if you don't like the actual point per reception as well, to try to tip the scales and make tight ends more valuable. I'm not saying I love the idea, but I, like Cody said, in like a tester league, I wouldn't mind trying it out to see how it works out and see if it makes tight ends more valuable.
Yeah, I would almost rather see it simplified. Like, yeah, I get running backs are not as deep, which is probably why they did the 1 point per running back and then, over the half point for wide receiver. I'd almost rather try it with a half point for running backs and wide receivers and a full point for tight ends. Like, simplify it slightly. Maybe then tight ends aren't going to get enough of a boost. Maybe it'll still be fine. Like I said, I'd have to see, like Tyler said, I'd like to see it in a tester league. But I'd hate to boost running, like the top end running backs to being too crazy. Like Christian McCaffrey would go absolutely insane having an extra half point per catch over all those top wide receivers.
Yeah. I think there's definitely your outliers. Like I said, Travis Kelce is an outlier in tight end. Like if he gets an extra point for every catch, like that's an outlier. Christian McCaffrey would be the same. Would be interesting. And I think before we get to the next one, it's also a good PSA moment. We're talking about fantasy rules, but if you're a commissioner listening, don't just make a rule change because you're like, hey, these guys said this was a really fun idea. Like talk to your league about it. Really, the rule changes should happen during the offseason. So if it's a redraft league, there's still time. If you're in dynasties and keepers, like you should put it to a league vote just to if you're going to accelerate a league rule change to this upcoming season.
Yeah, and
Even
another
if you're in
PSA
an
to commissioners.
established redraft.
And
Like,
PSA to commissioners,
league.
please be active. Like, do not just set up a league on a league and just take the default league settings. We don't want that. Actually take the time, comb through the rules, see what can be adjusted, what needs changed, because like all leagues should be unique. All leagues should have their own twist. There's nobody out there that there's no one set league that every single person is like, that's the type of league I like. That's the exact format I like. There isn't. And there's people out there that like crazy leagues, people that don't like crazy leagues. Like everybody's different. Everybody likes to play fantasy different. We want to make fantasy fun. That's the entire point. So please be an active commissioner. Look through the rules, look what can be changed, and talk to your league mates about some of these changes you can make. Since I'm on a tangent, since I'm rambling, I'll go right into my next one. So there's something I've been a big proponent of in fantasy forever, and it's trying to make every week meaningful. And even if you miss the playoffs, like still having a reason to keep playing is something I've tried pushing for a while. It sucks watching everybody else play and you're just chilling there like, great, I have nothing to do. So one that I like is once the playoffs start, there's a consolation bracket. The consolation bracket is just the bracket that goes on with just the people who've been eliminated from the playoffs or didn't make the playoffs. So if you made the playoffs but get knocked out, you do not go into the consolation bracket. Now, the rule would be week 18, the week that we never usually play. Week 18 would be your league champion faces off against the winner of the consolation bracket. That way, consolation bracket had a reason to play. You had a reason to keep playing all the way up until week 18. Now, if the champion beats the consolation bracket winner, cool. He's already league champ. He's got the money. He's got the belt. He's got the trophy. Whatever you have for your league, he gets the ride off in victory with one more win. But if the winner of the consolation bracket beats your league champion, this is where it becomes up to you. The most common one is the champion has to buy the buy-in next year for the consi winner. I mean, you are the champion of the losers and you just beat the champion. You got to buy their buy-in. Or maybe they get some kind of fun punishment. Maybe they get some kind of fun rules. This is up to you to like twist it and play around with it. But having a matchup between your consi winner and your champion in week 18.
I like it as just something to keep people more engaged throughout the year, like you said. I think it gets a little bit sketchy with like, how do you work waivers in the playoffs when you're talking about, giving the championship teams a fair shot, but the consolation bracket teams still have to stay active or stuff like that. But I like the idea just to keep people active through the entire season.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'm of the mindset. I know we've debated this on air, off air. If you miss the playoffs, it is what it is. Like I'm in that mindset. Like I'll just watch football, and that could just be the way I play fantasy football. And if I was the champion, I wouldn't want to. I legit just I wouldn't want to have to play guys in week 18 who could be on bye, even if it was just to cover someone's buy-in. So this rule's not for me. I can see why some people would like it, but that's also because I'm not the guy that's like trying to make every week count. If I'm out, I'm out. It's part of life.
There's other ways that you can keep your league involved through the whole entire year too. Like for example, we have a draft lottery. We also have a punishment for 10th place. Not necessarily like a punishment. Like if they get 10th place one time, like, oh, they're going to have to go do this. But if someone gets 10th place 2 years in a row, there's a vote to kick them from our league. Like things like that can still keep people engaged through the entire season too. Which I think is good. So even if Tyler's rule's not for you, there's other things out there.
I agree. I don't know whose turn it is, but I got another one, so I'm just going to go.
Okay.
I'm done. I'm out.
I've got a couple, but go ahead, Cody.
All right. So it's kind of new. It's kind of scary. But I used not to believe this, but now I believe FAB, which is free agency acquisition something budget. I forget what the second A stands for. But
you said
that
it.
literally was it.
Acquisition.
Budget. Oh, that's right. Free agency's 2 words. LOL. There we go.
I'm about to sign off.
Yeah, I don't blame you. But it's just the way of doing waivers. It's almost like bidding. They run every day. You have to, you could put in $0 if you want a guy just for a guy. Like if you're just picking up a kicker for a week, you don't have to spend any money. But I think there's been, because the season's extended, there's some people that like really don't try the first week or two because they want to try to be at the lower waivers to try to get those guys break out, especially after week 1, guys we don't know about if there's a big injury. So letting everyone be active. So Fab, and it also adds interesting to the trade market as well when you can trade Fab dollars. So big fan of Fab.
I like it. I mean, I've been coming on to Fab a lot more lately too, especially because I think the more and more you dig into doing just regular waiver systems, the more you realize that there's faults to it.
Mm-hmm.
And no matter which way you do it. I mean, maybe one way is better than another, but there's faults. So I like the idea of Fab as well. And if we need to learn more about Fab, feel free to ask us a question on our social media. We can explain it even deeper. Do you guys hate when you are the second highest scoring team in the league and you lose?
I mean, I hate losing. So
Yeah.
it doesn't matter. If I'm the 10th highest scorer, I still lost.
But it's even worse when you're like, second, third highest scorer, lose to the highest scoring team in the league. I've seen this rule kind of coming out more and more every single year. And it's the idea of you're playing 2 games every single week and your second game is against the median. So essentially you have your normal matchup where you're facing, one other team, and then the top 5 scorers in the week overall would get another win, bottom 5 get a loss. So it's the idea of trying to award high scoring teams, and it's supposed to kind of get rid of the luck aspect a little bit, but still there's luck to it.
Yeah, I've heard it. And my counter argument is, even in the NFL, sometimes you have the games like the Chiefs and Rams where it's 58-55, shootout of the century. And there's also a game that week that finished 13-17. And the team that won 13 or had 17 points won too. So you play your matchup. If you're going to do that, I'd say at that point just get rid of head-to-head matchups.
And just play top 5 scorers every week at a win.
Yep. I don't think there's a point
Makes
of having
sense.
head-to-head matchups if you're going to still get a win for scoring in the top 5.
Tyler, you agree?
Yeah, you might as well go to Roto at that point.
Which Roto football, I know Roto's big in baseball. Roto football would be interesting. Something I have never done. I think that was kind of how fantasy football started, though. I've got one more. Cody, do you have any more?
I have one more, and I'll go.
Right. Go ahead.
And I've never actually seen this rule done. This is my own creation that I've never actually seen done. It might have been at the screenshot you sent of it, might have been along the same lines, but you talked about it. The time you have a person that has 40 points on your bench, I would, and again, this one needs an active commissioner. Every team gets one alternative, like the commissioner will go in and sub
mulligan.
A mulligan.
One mulligan.
So one mulligan. But to keep it interesting, you have to send the message to the commissioner, like let's say by Tuesday at noon or something like that. And you send it to them privately. So the player you're playing doesn't know if they're going to do it, just in case they have some guy that can do it. But you only get one for the whole season, including playoffs. So you can either save it for the playoffs or you can do a must now win game. I've never seen it happen. I think it'd be super fun. I think it would add another twist. Some people would get greedy and use week 1 and then wish they had it later in the season in a game that kind of counts more. But I think it'd be a fun way to play fantasy football. Again, probably not my main league, but if we're going to do some tester leagues, why not?
I like the idea, but I disagree on it being eligible in the playoffs. I think it should be a regular season only rule, personally.
Okay.
I agree with that too.
It would really suck to lose the championship if you used your mulligan and the other team didn't and they had a guy go off. Like, I get it. There is some gamemanship to it, but if we want to condense it to just the regular season, I'm cool with that as well.
Yeah, I just feel like if you put it into the playoffs, you either have to do one for the regular season and one for the playoffs, or everyone's just going to either save it for the playoffs or that must-win game if they're like a borderline 6-7 seed and 6 make the playoffs. Maybe you will get the one person that's greedy about it, but it's just going to be, I think, chaos in the playoffs if you don't implement it just regular season. But I do like the idea as well. All right. So my last rule here is kind of for the commissioners out there that have leagues that are kind of set. You have your set of guys, maybe it rotates 1 or 2 around, but you have like your solid set of league mates. And it's the Fantasy World Cup. So if you don't know anything about how the World Cup works, every 4 years, the world puts together like a tournament of soccer teams and they play for, world championship. So essentially, you in your fantasy league, every 4th season, you would say double the buy-in or something like that, and you'd have like what's like basically a big, league year to try to win some bigger prize than you do win in a normal year.
Yeah, I can already see in Cody's eyes right now. He's like, bro, I want the buy-in to be $5, and I'm tired of you guys trying to up it. No, like every year, Cody's like, no more buy-in. I will say, so I'm in a dynasty league that I think I want to say a third of the buy-in or half of the buy-in, whatever part of the buy-in goes into a separate pot. And the way this dynasty league runs, it's kind of similar. So it's not every 4th year, but it's interesting. So I figured I'd throw it out there. Anyway, so the way this runs is half the buy-in goes into a separate pot, and everybody plays every year. And once you win, you get that half the pot. You're still making a good chunk of change because you're still getting half the league. Only first place gets paid. Now, if anybody wins back-to-back championships, they win the side pot. They win the whole enchilada. They win all of it. The thought is that it's not going to happen right away, so that pot is going to build up and build up and build up. And if you build a dynasty team that becomes so dominant that you win back-to-back years, then you will win this big pot. You'll get this big chunk of money. Sorry, what?
No, you're good. Just keep going.
Okay. Yeah, so you'll win this big chunk of change. Now, the way they make this interesting is if you win a championship, that following year, you are not allowed to trade at all with anybody. That's how they kind of handicap you from being able to win so easily your second year. Again, it's not for everybody, but it's an interesting rule out there.
So I have heard of one other league that's kind of similar to the one that you've said that works for redrafts. Or I guess for keeper leagues that aren't quite as, you can't build quite as much of like a dynasty as you can in a, actual dynasty league. And I think they called it a jackpot league or something like that. Essentially, you get together 10 to 12 teams, and that league is together until, or like you can have people replace, until somebody wins 3 championships. So you keep the champion of that league that year wins half the pot goes to the end, and the first franchise to win 3 championships wins the entire pot. So the league could go on for 25 years if you think about it, if everyone keeps winning 2 championships, or I guess 21 years is the max, but good chance the league is still at least going to go 15 years or so, because winning 3 championships is still difficult.
Hey, we're at 10 years for the league, and nobody's won 3 championships yet. So,
as I say,
exactly. And there's 2 guys with 2, but it's no one's won 3 championships. So if you have a solid group of guys that's committed to the long term, and maybe you have to replace 1 or 2 franchises throughout, it's not a bad idea to do something like that. And then somebody wins the big jackpot when they have 3 championships, and you can even reset it and keep going after that.
Yeah, it sounds like you need to find some new leagues that they're a little bit more competitive. But guys, we have to get ready to wrap up the show. We are running out of time. It's been good to have us all back. I'm sorry, Tyler. No oddball fact this week. We just don't have time for it. That's how
I had it ready. I'll screenshot it and use it next episode.
Perfect. So we have one. So that's a little tease for next week. If you have any fantasy rules that you implemented that we didn't mention, we'd love to hear them. So feel free to reach out to us at the Couch GMs. I'm Cody Roadcap, George Kerth, and Tyler Snyder. We're the Couch GMs podcast. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you all in 2 weeks.
Boom.
Nice.
Choo choo.